I'm Matt, and welcome to my shop. So I'm preparing to lift the gearbox back up into the Cincinnati using the Harbor Freight lift, but the support legs can't slide under the machine, so I tilt them back behind, and what I'll be doing here is hanging some weights from them to counterbalance the load. Okay, so I'm about to start lowering it. Now, I noticed when I pulled this off, there was no sealant on the top up here. I was a little surprised at that, but it didn't leak from splash when I had it running before. So I'm assuming it just doesn't splash out there. I'm going to try putting it together that way again. If I have an issue, I'll just lift it enough to get some sealant in there and put it back down. Don't have to do a complete removal for that. Just bring it up like 2 inches and I could paint it on. Apparently I don't need it, so I'm going to start lowering it in. So we have our gear selectors here, and let's see, I'll just pull up a still shot. I've got showing the poles on the other side. It should come up now. So each of those poles, the slot, engage around the gears and they move them back and forth. So this is how the gears change. See, that one there, this one down here. This back one, I think, is the one that doesn't move a lot. They're pretty close together. But these all have to line up where they are on here. Let's see, I have them all in the back-facing position. So I'm going to want all the gears back like that. So if it's still engaged. Okay, so that should be the position for that one. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop this a little bit so it starts to, the body starts to hit the opening up here. And then we'll just slowly square it up as I go down. I really should have a second person for this, but it's just me as usual, so gotta make do. Might be able to just grab it like this. So we gotta start. The other thing I gotta watch going down is the coupler up here, not the front one, but the one on the back engages to where the motor comes through from the back of the cavity here. And I have to make sure that they will line up. It's a precise fit in there, probably going to take a little fiddling to get that to actually match. I think I'm going to have to pause here. It looks like I got to pull this front face plate off here where the selectors are in order to get that to mesh up. I'm trying to drop it down. The casting is hitting the poles before I can get it down. And if I drop it too much further down, I'm not going to be able to see in there to line up. So I'm going to pull this out, and then I'll drop it down. I'll re-engage the face plate here. This part isn't as heavy, so I should be able to get that by hand. See what it takes to get this to split. It hasn't been on that long, about a little over a year. This guy I bought it from had it off when he did a seal up on the motor end here when he had the motor rewound. I think I'm going to lift that and get in there and just tap it from the other side. So I'm using a lead mallet, which shouldn't cause any damage in there. Forward fall here was grabbing on the side. It's like, it's part of the casting to this. Between each gear level, there's a strut that goes up that just holds the casting together a little stronger. It was caught on the back of that. Okay, so there's the front faceplate with holes on it. So that's what that side looks like with it out. So I was getting hung up on this one right here. Okay, so let's give another go at lowering this down. So I gotta line this and this up as we come down. I'll probably have to rotate the two of them, get them to come in just right. Yeah, not lose the little brass piece here. I think I hit one of the pins there. Just get it to drop down. There's two guide pins that line that up rather than just relying on the screws. That should let me set it down. I think we're basically in. Put all the weight down on it. This is lining up good. Got a couple here. right in there. Gotta double check, make sure they all hit the gears right. But I didn't feel any interference, so I think it's okay. No, that one's not right. That feels better. Okay, so it's all lined up now, ready to put all the screws in. So basically we got the gearbox in. Once I get this done, I'll come back and we'll start working on the heads. Okay, so two of these are a little bit longer. They go on the ends here. Just going to set them in to start. Not tight, just brought down a little, so I don't get them mixed up with the others. Yeah, I think that's it right there. Okay, so the DRO's on. I think we got a gearbox all in. We're ready for the head. So here I'm just checking that I have enough working height.
torque this again quite a bit heavier off camera. This was a test fit to make sure the alignment was good before installing the T-bolts. So now I'm up against the rubber seal and it tightens up there. It's going to take a few whacks with a rubber mallet to get it to seat.
Okay, I do need to pick up new nuts for holding this on. I'm just putting these on temporarily. They're not in great shape, but I picked the 4 best ones. And I think I got this on enough here that I can get these started, the thread on, I'll just pull it on with the nuts. I'm pretty sure the inside is engaged where that coupler is. I can double check that. Once I pull the table down out of here, I can turn it by hand inside and that'll tell me. doesn't feel like I hit it yet. This is going to be interesting because now I'm kind of guessing as to where it is. I think I'm just going to have to feel it. Hopefully I don't knock it off. I may have to reset this, pull it out, and do it again.
And they did.
Okay, so I did get this back on. Everything is fit up inside. Everything turns alright. The block is in place. I mentioned when I put this together, I still had the old bolts. I've gotten new bolts for this, like this here. They're a little bit extra long, which I wanted to give a few more threads on there, and this is a hardened steel. These are from U-bolts that hold axles onto tractor-trailers. I got this at a tractor-trailer supply place. When I put this together with the new bolts, I put the washers on here. I didn't mention it before, but there's supposed to be a set of washers that go under the nut on all 4 positions on here and on all 4 positions on this side where the spindle goes on. I only have 6 of them. 2 of them were missing when I bought the machine. So let's take a close look at this. It has a chamfer on one side here, but it's pretty straightforward. The hole is just a tiny bit, few thousandths over ½ an inch. And I have a piece of stock that I think is going to work pretty good to make these. It is extra thick, so I can't just go to the hardware store and buy this. And the diameter of the ones in the hardware store are bigger on the outside. So we're going to make it to fit just right. So I have this, which was a shaft coupler of some type. The inside hole is pretty much on spec right now. And I need to turn the outside down just a little bit. And we'll put a chamfer on the outside after I do that, and we'll part it off and repeat once again, and that'll give me my 2 washers. So let's get moved on to that, and then we can start on getting the spindle put back on. just measure this and punch it in the DRO. See what our tenths are. Well, that's close enough for what this is. 3/10. So it looks like about 2.5 of a thou over. So I think if I just hit it with a little bit of sandpaper, we'll be fine. And actually, that's way over spec anyways. It doesn't need to be anywhere that accurate to what this is. It's just a washer. I gotta get new paper here. I put a little more concentration on the back because I know that's where it was a little bit bigger. See how close it is now. So the very back goes a little over, but I'm not going to use that. I'm only going to make 2 washers. So that right there, and that's pretty much dead on it, so we're good to go. Original is about 1/8 wide. Yeah, I could go just a little bit more than that. I'm just eyeballing the chamfer. Okay, so my parting tool is 2 millimeters wide, and everything else I'm doing here is in inches. So I'm going to touch off on the inner side with the DRO in millimeters. I'll back off and move over the 2 millimeters, re-zero, and then I can get my measure. I'll switch back to inches and I can get my depth back in inches. Okay, so that just barely touched there. Alright, so we got our offset. I'm going to switch the inches. Oh, wait a minute, I got to zero that first. And there's 0. Now I'm going back to inches. I need to move back 160 thousandths. I'm going to put an extra tooth dowel on there so that I can sand it flat. Just because the parting tools don't always make the cleanest cut. Alright, so my cutting oil is a little anemic where it's cold here, but should be enough to do a part. Doesn't look right. I think I had a wrong measurement here. So I must have had a bad entry on the DRO because I'm about 60 thou short of where I should have been on that move. I'm going to have to reface this chamfer and do it again. Not sure where that went wrong, but definitely was off. And it's not a matter of just, being a point off. It was a real error. Well, I got enough material here, so we can do that. just going to do a sanity check here. Yeah, that does look like it should be it now. Not sure where I went wrong before, but something was off. Okay, so that should be it now. I got a little burr here because it parted off on the other side. They'll part on one edge or the other, and you always get a burr on one side. So I'm gonna have to cut that off. So I'm gonna make up the next washer while I have this chucked in, and then I'm gonna use this to make a little tool that I'll use to grind that off and not get burnt trying to do it. So I'm going to go straight to the chamfer here. How does that width look? That should be good. Okay, so now we'll take this out and we'll make that little tool. No real measurements on this, I'm just going to eyeball it. See, that's 160 thou out, so if I just bump right there, 0, come out, 160, we'll go a little less, let's do 140, so it's about 20 thou less than the thickness of the part. So the first part, I'm just going to take this little edge off of here. Okay, that's off on that one. Okay, so on the chamfered side, there's just a tiny little burr there. I'm just going to hit that real quick too. I'll flip it, bring that down. So here's our 4 washers. These are the originals. These are the 2 that I just made. And our T-bolts and the nuts. So see if we can get everything in position and get the head on here. I'm not sure how much this weighs, but it's definitely more than I can lift straight up. I think I got enough clearance here that I can lift it up in there. So before I put the head up here, I'm going to get some grease in here. I already put one in. That camera was stopped. I thought it was rolling. Probably going to take about 3 to get that to where I want in there. I'm leaving the head part off of this. I'm just pumping it in out of the tube here, because I'm putting so much in at one time. Just taking the whole tube and emptying it in there. So I'm using Lucas Green, the extra heavy duty. In my opinion, this is one of the best greases you can get. So I'm attempting to get the face clean here because I kind of want a little bit of friction here, because that's what helps to keep it from turning after. You don't rely on the worm. The bolts will take up some of it, but you also want friction on the front. At least I believe that's how that should go. When you loosen it, it should turn free, reasonably free, but once it's tightened down, it should be able to clamp tight. Alright, that's probably as best as I'm going to get. I've got my feed motor is still running half speed on this, so that's why the rapids are a little slow. I could turn it up at this point, but I kind of want it a little bit slower right now anyway, so I'll try and fit this. Okay, so I'm coming up against one issue here I'm going to have to figure out. This is still too low. I'm going to have to get it blocked up more. I think I got enough room there now. So if you can see that rubber seal there, that it tends to bind up just as that goes through, because that's got to press in there tight. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put just a little bit of lean on the head, and I'm going to come back with a rubber mallet and just give it a couple of whacks to try and get that to slip through. Because at this point there's too much friction. I can't just use the table to move it over. I can do that to guide everything in for initial start, but once I get in there, it's got to have a little force to it. But I don't have to go too far, because once I can get the nuts on here, then I can just pull it in using the bolts. Might be able to get a couple of threads without the washers. Aside from the weight of this should go easier than the knuckle, because I don't have that brass square that goes in there. That was a pain to get aligned up. On this, it's just a spline, and once I get this hung, I can drop the table and just rotate the spindle a little bit, and it should drop right in. Okay, so I'm going to lower the table now. That should be hung up there good enough that it's not going to fall off. This is probably, I'm almost up to where it's going to engage the splines in there, so I don't want to pull any more and force anything. Okay, so they haven't touched yet, because I can still turn this. I think it's about to engage, but it hasn't actually gone in yet. I think I gotta loosen the the other side. It feels like it's going in a little crooked. There we go. That just engaged. Okay, so I have a fair amount of threads on here now. I'm going to back these off one by one and start getting the washers on. So the bevel side, or the chamfer, goes towards the nut, and the flat side goes towards the cast iron. Okay, so all the washers are on. I need to check my tilt form here that it's not going to wind up. I should have checked this before. It's probably about ready to touch here. Okay, so that was just starting to engage. Okay, so the back side looks seated. This side's just about there. That one's good. It's all seated good. I'm going to loosen them just a little bit and set my zero. I'll still have to tram this in later once I get the oil in and start everything up. I actually have to make a tool for tramming. I can do a rough one with stuff I have, but I want to make a better tool for it. That'll be another episode. Get it to focus here. So we have our vernier set up. We'll get the 2 zeros here. We want them to line up. And these are spaced just slightly different than this. It's like an old-fashioned vernier caliper. So one should deviate either inside or outside of the other one. And it's going to be these 2 inner ones. And we want that deviation to be the same on both of them. So the zeros should be lined up exact, and the ones on the right side, I believe, are just slightly further in than the ones on the outside. And that should be 0 on here. Of course, we've still got to tram it to make sure, but this should bring me in the ballpark. So now I'm going to snug everything down, and that'll complete putting the head on here. So tomorrow, or in a couple of days, when I get the next chance to get in the shop here, I'll put the oil in, and we'll spin this up for real, go through all the gears, just make sure everything is working right, that it works smooth. And I think we'll be back in business after that. Everything is assembled now. I've got the hydraulic oil is in it and ready to try it. Spin it up full RPM. I've got it in the highest gear, which is 1530 RPM. So let's see how it goes. full speed. So, I think at this point we're ready to call this finished for now and get back to using it again. So thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and found it entertaining or educational. If so, please consider hitting like or subscribe. It does help give me incentive to continue producing more. Thank you.